Alright guys, Matt with Thrive Off Grid. Alright, so what I have here in front of me is the prototype CXF-Si. This is, right now we're calling it the 2026 model, but the 2027 model is going to be coming out here real soon. We'll be producing that starting this fall, and we are currently taking orders for it now. So, you'll want to, if you want to get in on the fall production cycle, which we'll be delivering machines sometime in December, and we do have bulk orders coming in, so I'm kind of limited to how many I can produce per quarter. I think we can produce anywhere from 40 to 60 if I get my staff back, which they are currently laid off from last year's lack of sales. This year we kind of rebounded. But I am going to do a promotion. I'm going to offer the Rapid Fire charcoal producer for free if you get your orders in before the end of the month. So that expires the end of July, whatever. I don't remember if it's 30 or 31 days or not. All right, so, but anyways, yeah, that gasifier is the most energy dense gasifier in the world right now. That little 150-pound machine can produce a net output with that 500cc generator there of 6.5 to 7 kilowatts net. Efficiency wise, the steam induction system, that's our proprietary system, which just totally changed the game for this whole thing in the entire industry. That makes that machine more efficient than a wood gasifier. Starting gross feedstock BTU value to net energy out. So when you factor, you know, all the losses between the two, this machine actually comes out ahead. So, and I'll show you the water flow with that, because this thing can drink a ton of water. It averages about anywhere from 4 to 5 liters of water per 10 pounds of charcoal, or 12 pounds of charcoal. And then it's really super easy to use, which I'm going to show you here. We're going to be going over the servicing, you know, cleaning out the ash, the filter, how to clean that, how to clean the steam loop, which you're going to need to use citric acid powder, which you can get on like Amazon for like $5. You'll want to do that every maybe 40 hours. Just put a cup of that in your water and mix it in. And then I'll show you how to set up the engine adapter, which it's already on there, but it's pretty straightforward. Then the hose kit, how to prep your fuel, and then I'm gonna weigh the fuel, load the fuel, show you the water flow of that thing, and then we're gonna go over the Rapid Fire charcoal producer. Show you how that works. It's a multi-function wood burner that doubles as a mobile campfire fire pit. You know, you can cook on it. It's adaptable for an 18-inch grill that you can get on Amazon. You can produce hot water from it. You could potentially produce hot water for a water heat bank using a bunch of drums, and you could put them underneath your dwelling, right? Like an RV, for instance. You could place a bank of them things underneath your RV and literally heat all the drums. And then if you had that skirted in, it could heat the RV just from floor heat. In fact, you probably want to build some sort of shelter around them with a vent system to release so you can control how much heat that you remove from bank at one time, right? Otherwise, it could probably get cooking in there. So, and then I'm gonna do a promo offer, or actually, I just did that, didn't I? All right, and then we'll do some a little bit of wood processing with it after I get this running. We'll go over the details of the rapid fire charcoal maker, how to run that and maintain that as well. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you around the back of the machine, and then I'm going to show you how to clean it out. All right, so here we are. We're in the back. All right, so right down here is your clean out port. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to tilt this forward and kind of block it up. All right, so you got a couple blocks here. All right, so now you're going to want to put something underneath. All right, so then you're going to be supplied with this auger. You tuck this up in a drill. I want to put it in low. Alright, that's all there is to it. This machine really didn't need it because I just cleaned it out, did a full clean out yesterday. So usually it takes about, you don't need to do this every day. You only need to clean this out maybe every 40 hours of operation, anywhere from 30 to 40 hours, I'd say. So I mean that charcoal is actually pretty clean. I'm actually gonna dump it right back into the machine, but just wanted to show you how that's done. All right, so this is the filter we supply you with, and we do supply you with some Scotch-Brite pads, but you'll have to cut them down. If you got like a paper shear, you're gonna want to cut them to 7.5 inches in length. Right now, to clean, you don't have to clean all of them. You only have to clean maybe the first 4 layers, if anything, and then basically you just pull the retainer out. Basically, it creates a chamber on each side, so that the gas can equalize before going in and out the filter, because otherwise it can try to suck the filter right in the output, and that doesn't work too well. So to clean these guys, what you're gonna do, probably seen these before, off-grid washing machine. Stick that in there. You know, that's really about it. Alright, so I get asked this question a lot. But condensate, that machine has 100% water shipped, so there is never any condensate to ever deal with, ever. It's dry as a bone. The only moisture that's ever going to get in this filter is from washing them pads. Okay. Alright, so in your kit, inside the gasifier, likely inside the ammo box, you'll have an adapter. It looks like this, right? And all you got to do, it's real simple. You just remove the air box that's on your stock engine. They all come with it. You're going to completely remove that, regardless if you have a tri-fuel or a plain gasoline generator. This is exactly the same. That your natural gas LP system is irrelevant for a wood gas system. This is a negative pressure system. So you're going to remove that, and there's a 3D printed adapter. This is a carbon fiber PETG. So this can withstand heat, plus outdoors it can be, it'll survive the elements. So basically, just like you see here, just bolt it on, and then there you go. There you go. That's it. Ooh, it's coming loose. So, yep, you want to check that. So I will be tightening that before we conclude or start our run today. All right. So then, this is your cold hose. You got two hoses. You got one that's red like that in your kit. Then you'll have a red one. That's your hot hose. So that's gonna go to your intake of the inline filter, the ammo box filter we just serviced, and the exhaust port of the gasifier. So I'm gonna set that up, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Alright guys, back here behind the machine. Alright, so on the back of the Fusion, this is this unit on the back with the blower system and everything. This is kind of like a gas cooler. Basically this whole apparatus with the cooling tubes and everything is your gas cooler. This is a endothermic reaction, so the gas is actually pretty cold when it comes out of the unit. So it's not extremely hot. So as you can see, you attach it here. It's got quick connect couplings. You can zip tie these together, keep them from coming undone, but they shouldn't, even if they become loose over time. And then usually on your filter, I got a plastic one, but if you got aluminum to aluminum, right? So mine's plastic, but yours will have an aluminum adapter on the ammo box side for the hot hose. On the other side, it's a plastic one. So come around here. This is your mixer assembly. This does not come assembled on the unit to make room for packaging, because we're going to be shipping these in a cardboard box with wood caps. So you will have to assemble the wheels. You have to put the blower on. You have to uncouple this hose right here, and then this screws right off, and that'll be placed inside the unit along with the wheels, and then the handle and the side plates and the lid will also be, you'll have to assemble that. Oh, and yeah, the flare cup will just 4 bolts. Kind of typical, assembly for something like this. To get shipping down, that's what we got to do, especially for export. We can ship 6 of these units on a standard 48 by 48 pallet, which will make export distribution possible and low cost. So that's a big change. So the next step is setting up the power. It's a 12-volt system. However, this blower is an AC/DC blower. You can run this on AC. However, at full power, at 110 full power is too much for this gasifier. So you have to put a speed control on it and slow that down. And even most router speed controls, it's still a bit too fast. We use a step-up module. This is a 12 volt to 24 volt step-up module. You could put a 36 or 48 if you wanted it to be a little more potent, but 24 volts is plenty to get this gasifier started. And then to power it, you could use like an AC 12-volt power supply hooked up to the generator, and that's actually a really good idea, because if that stalls, then it doesn't supply power to the water pump, and the water pump shuts off. If you have a external battery, which we're going to be using today, if the engine stalls, that it's still going to be supplying water, so it can flood the engine. So you're going to want to monitor the machine anyway. But so if it does stall out, you're going to remember to shut that off. But that's another cool feature about this system is the steam induction. That doesn't immediately stop when the machine shuts. It actually shuts the machine down. And it, if you've seen the old videos where if I remove the draft off the machine, it'll blow flames out the front. That's the thing of the past, because the steam dilutes the gas and prevents that from happening. Plus, it's a flashback arrestor, so there's a lot of good things that this system does for this technology. So we'll do that. All right, so you're gonna get in your kit, you'll have a power cable, and it's up to you how you want to arrange that, but it will have connectors like this. Basically, it's got a switch right there. All right, now to properly start the machine, you're gonna want to remove this hose, and then you're gonna have this cap, and you need this installed to start it. This is a safe way to do it, although it's kind of a pain. And then you don't want to suck air back through the system, because that could be dangerous, right? So that's what that looks like. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you how I do it. But you must remember that this has to be airtight. This whole system. So if you're worried about that, then use a cap. I mean, it's not going to blow apart and kill anybody or nothing, but it's just you could ruin the blower. Is what the real danger is. All right, so yeah, the filter, the fusion, you should never have to service that, because the inlet and the outlets are at the bottom. So if there's dust in it, it'll always settle to the bottom anyway, and it'll get sucked through the holes into the filter, or it'll go back into the machine on the other side. So you don't ever have to deal with that. But there is an access cover. There's 8 bolts that you remove, and then you can access the fusion if you ever really had to, but you should never have to mess with it. And then yeah, the connection is the same for the water. And we'll show you the flow real quick and how to hook that up. Same thing. You have a connector here, and then also there's a connector for your pickup tube, right? And then your water tank. So that's it just kind of fits on this tube. I'm trying to do this one-handed. All right, so this is the tube that goes into the steam loop. It actually goes in up there. But I got it disconnected just to show you how much water. This is at 6 o'clock, so 12. All right, so 12 o'clock is off. 3 o'clock is starting, and then anywhere from 3 o'clock to roughly, on this machine, it's been about 7 o'clock with a 20 volt lithium ion drill battery. Now 12 volts is going to be slower, so you probably be able to turn it up more. But that, you know, this setting is going to be dependent on your fuel. And what you'll want to do is get a pipe reducer. It's a 1-inch pipe plug, or not a pipe plug, but a reducing bushing. Try to get this out of the way here. Reducing bushing, and then you'll adapt this for a temp probe, and then you'll get a readout, a DRO for your temp probe, and then you're going to want to maintain about 1600 to 1700 degrees F, and that's what you're going to want to set this to, and wherever that ends up sustaining that temperature range is your setting. We'll do that later. I don't have money to buy that right now, so it's gonna have to wait. Otherwise I'd be doing it in this video, but it's just not gonna happen. So all right, so I'm gonna turn the switch on here. That's the flow. So this is 3 o'clock. So that's a typical drip, and that's probably a bit much for a drip feed gasifier like we did in the past. Right, because I disconnected it, there's an error. But this is a peristaltic pump, so if you're doing any kind of charcoal gasification, this is the way to do your drip. This will ensure reliability, that you got a constant, reliable drip going into your machine. All right, so I'm gonna turn it. This is full. So that's like a stream. All right, so this is at 6 o'clock. Right, so later on when we're running this, I'll be setting it probably about right here, and that's how much water this thing is drinking. A drip feed gasifier can't do that. All right, so set you down. I'm gonna turn that off. I'm gonna plug that back in. All right, so I got my tether here. Sorry, guys. All right, so next step is we're gonna process the fuel and load this. So yeah, this concludes the setup. So this is your setup. I showed you how to clean to service the ash, how to service the filter. There's nothing more to know about this other than never open the hopper when it's hot. Actually, I shouldn't say that, but when you open the hopper, there's flammable gas inside there, right? Especially, you know, when it's burnt down, there's going to be glowing ambers exposed to the gas in the hopper. And when you open that hopper lid, a rush of air is going to go in there, and then you'll get a puff back. Make sure your face, just wear gloves, open the hopper, and stand back and let it puff back. And sometimes there's a delay. You'll be thinking, oh, okay, well, it's not going to do it this time, because there'll be times it don't. As soon as you do it, it'll go poof, and right when you look over. So be cautious about that. But that's typical. All gasifiers do that. It's just part of the nature of the technology. So we'll probably show you that. Yeah, having the awning up here might not be a good idea. We'll come back later on, and the camera on the fire department will be here and be a mess. All right, so yeah, I think we might be a little better here. All right, so I don't know why it's being all kind of glitchy. All right, so this is fuel made with a reversifier here. So I'm going to show you how I process this. These chunks are big. Ideally, you want chunks no bigger than this. But it's alright if you do end up with bigger pieces in there. That's perfectly fine. And then you'll see when I process this, it'll be big chunks all the way down to pea-size pieces. Right? Now when I screen this, that's the big thing though. You don't want to be constantly cleaning the gasifier. You want to screen it. Screen your fuel. It'll keep it from clinkers from forming. Now that dust and fines, that's worth money. This is black gold right here. To people doing soil enrichment, you'll accumulate that, and you can actually sell that for a pretty good penny. So that has value. All right, so I'm gonna set you down. Hopefully this thing isn't gonna be all glitchy on me. And basically, just take a shovel, just kind of chop it up. It's more than enough. You don't want to pulverize it. No, actually. Shovel back. Just gonna do a little at a time. You know, and this thing is pretty easy to make. However you want to do it, you can do like a inverted, like a 45-degree angle screen mechanism. I find that to be pretty easy. All right, so we give a bucket here. Now, versifier, 10 gallons is typically what it yields. This takes roughly 12 gallons. So yeah, easily another 3 gallons will fit in there. That's my entire hand, right? Alright, so this is the new versifier. This is also another prototype. As you can see, I don't know if you see the triangles that I to weld over and delete those. I was experimenting with 3-stage air system with an upper damper, and I started playing around with blocking those middle ones off and found that's the way to do this. If you look, I'll show you here. When we have this set up in charcoal processing mode, you're gonna have, I'm gonna take this off a minute. You're gonna have your retort sitting in the center here, right? So let's show you that real quick. So you see how there's like a stand, and it's got a bunch of gussets. And this thing has made a lot of charcoal, and it's not showing any degradation. And these upper vents go into this upper chamber where this upper shield will be, right? So the gas is actually igniting here instead of underneath there, and it's heating the outside versus just heating underneath. We don't want it to heat just underneath. It's already got, you know, plenty of heat from the burner down here. Then you got your primary intake at the very bottom, right? Now the finer that you split your wood to put in here, which I'll show you on this one. This one's loaded. So I try to split this stuff pretty fine. And that's really easy to do with the electric splitter, because it's got a stop and a foot switch. It's not hard at all to do that. You could do this in about 15 minutes if you had the wood already kind of pre-split the firewood. You could break it down even further in about 10 minutes, and it's worth that 10 minutes. I got the clamp on the bottom. This is actually the top of the drum. What you're gonna do, you're gonna take a brand new drum, you're gonna cut the bottom right out of it, right? That's gonna be the top, and then you're gonna get a couple standard lids, one for your bottom, and that still fits on there just fine. And that's all it has to do is just sit on there. It doesn't have to be clamped. The reason we flip it is so that you can replace that lid on the bottom, because it will oxidize and degrade, so it's consumable. And you just use these clamps, and these are replaceable as well. And then you vent it. You can do a center vent like I did here, or you could vent it. You can get these flanges. These are on Amazon. It's just a pipe flange, right? And then get a couple sections of pipe. I'd probably go 3/4 inch pipe and do 3 of them. If I were to do this again, I would not do the center. I would put 3 evenly spaced on the bottom, and then strap them to the top of the drum so that they can't move. And then it'll be a lot easier to load this. This is kind of a pain in the butt having this in the center. And then when you bolt them to the side, it'll actually kind of point them they'll all point to the center, and that's what you want, because this gas, you want it to kind of thrust down into the burn box. All right, so I think you get a fire going. Basically, this is like a smokeless fire pit. I got my charcoal starter. What I'm gonna do? Hopefully it didn't blow. freaking hot. Is you're going to maintain this with this. That's high heat 2000 degree header paint. You can get this anywhere. Lowe's, Home Depot, AutoZone, any auto parts store is going to have this. And, you know, you're just going to want to repaint it. You know, hit the rust with a wire brush and keep repainting it. Keep it out of the rain. One of these lids for the 19-inch barrels, which this is designed to work with, this will fit right over the top of this. That'll keep the rain out. Okay, now what you burn in here when you're creating your charcoal, you don't want to use your hard oak or hardwood fuel that you're converting. You're going to use scrap wood, pine, garbage. You know, just like a wood stove, you're not going to burn pine. This is garbage. That's waste. And that's free fuel. You're not wasting anything other than, you know, a little bit of work to split the fuel up. Of course, you can use your splitter, and everything I got here is electric, right? So, and once I'm up and running, I'm gonna split that wood there. Probably not all of it, just enough to do another run, another batch. You know, you always want to stay a batch ahead. And then I got a Greenworks Pro saw. This is the Pro grade. I absolutely love that thing. I've taken down trees and completely processed entire trees with that saw. So that's all it is just cutting and splitting. There's nothing else. You don't got to run a chipper, and that ain't gonna cut it for a wood gas fire. You got to have chunks. And how are you gonna chunk up fuel? You know, what at what cost? You gonna buy a chunker? How much do you think one of them cost? You gonna build it? Good luck. Most people that buy a product from me, you know, the reason they're buying it from me is because they can't build it or don't want to. You know, so all this is barrel drums, you know. Yeah, you gotta, them are hard to find, these particular ones. The 16-gallon drums, a lot of auto shops get the grease and oil in those, so that's where you could probably source those. And then the larger 30-gallon drums with a 19-inch, so that's actually a 14. This is 14-inch diameter, and that's 19-inch diameter, right? And then, oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the water loop. So this is natural gas line. You're not going to use copper. See how flexible that is? It's nice and easy to work with, and it's corrugated, right? So if you have, say, 50 foot of this, it's actually equivalent to 100 feet. This is actually more efficient than copper. You don't want to use copper because it's so flexible. This can expand and retract without failure. And you can buy this on Amazon, eBay, you know, in various lengths. 50 feet, 100 feet. And then you can get the shorter 20-gallon 19-inch drums, which I'm showing you right there. There's the 30-gallon, that's the 20-gallon. And then that way you don't have to remove that drum. That could stay permanent on this unit. And then you wrap, you know, 50 foot of this around that, and then you'll have an accumulator drum, and then you'll use a thermal siphon technique to it'll self-distribute, self-pump the water, right? And now, you know what no one ever really talks about is how you're going to use that water. You're actually not going to use the water that you're heating for your domestic hot water. What you do is you'll have an accumulator drum, a nice drum, right? And then you're going to have another coil that'll actually go inside of it. And that coil is what's hooked up to your water supply from your house. And then that accumulator drum with the hot water acts like a on-demand hot water heater, right? So, and then you don't have to worry about hard water or any of that stuff. This is never gonna boil, but it'll definitely get hot. I mean, this thing will definitely, a couple 55-gallon drums, one batch, to make one batch of charcoal. You could easily probably heat at least 2 of those, if not 4, and 4 of those could actually heat an RV. All right, so there you go. It's basically a portable smokeless fire pit. And when you're dealing with this thing, you're gonna have a pair of good gloves. These ain't gonna cut it. You need a good pair of welding gloves or a pair of shielded welding gloves to handle this thing, especially when it's in retort mode. Alright, so I got some hot dogs. I'm gonna cook a couple hot dogs, even though I got a potato. I'm gonna do that on the grill, transfer some coals over. And then, oh yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to go over is, you're gonna want to, basic wood stove tools, shovel, poker, whatever, to deal with this. That's basically what this is, just a wood burner. I love this thing. It's one of the best parts about this. We're like, yeah, making charcoal is so difficult. No, it's not. It's really relatively pretty easy, and actually it's enjoyable. If you like having a fire pit, when we're doing retort, yeah, you're not gonna have the open top, but the flames flicker out the ports. It's actually kind of cool. It's like a little light show, especially when it's really dark. All right, so the fire's dying down. I'm gonna throw my dogs on. So you can see there's plenty of heat there, right? Maybe they're getting cooked pretty good. Perfect. Burn them things. Hot dogs actually gross me out. All right, so we're gonna cut it. I'm gonna eat, and then we'll move on. All right, now. So first thing, we gotta come around back here. I'm gonna open my blower. You see how I got my cap hung on here? So it's a nice place to put that. And I'm gonna turn the switch on. Blower's on. Run a 20-volt drill battery. What we'll probably do in the future is we'll 3D print the adapters for that. They actually might already exist online. And then yeah, you could adapt any drill battery to run this thing. Alright, so I'm gonna set you back down. Now what I'm gonna do, there's 2 ways to light it. This is actually the lighting port, but on the 2027 model, we're gonna automate this. And that automation actually is gonna be available for all the CXF builds. including the 2026 version. The 2027 isn't going to change, other than well, actually, it's not going to change at all. It's just we're going to update it with an automation package, and that'll come standard, or well, this version will come standard with a 3D printed insert that'll refine this. You know, we don't want this. This was kind of an afterthought, you know. As you can see, I still got the holes from the RV pumps that didn't work, and they were cumbersome to get working. This right here is the solution. So we're going to 3D print and insert into this that the automation package will fit into as well. And that's going to have a touchscreen, cell phone app eventually. It's going to have an onboard battery, so you won't have to use a drill battery or nothing. And then the controller will actually detect when the temperature is hot enough to engine run. It'll tell you, and there's going to be an AFR attachment that controls. There'll be a 3D printed valve here that'll be servo controlled, that the controller will control, and then it'll know if the engine is running. We're going to do the coil wrap around the spark plug and all that. So it'll know, it'll be able to detect if the engine's stalled or not to turn the pump off. It'll be pretty advanced. And then, yeah, we're going to be pushing the fuel ratio way beyond 1-to-1 ratio. Right now, this machine achieves a 70-to-1 ratio. I think it's actually a little better than that now, because the new heat exchange configuration inside there, which is proprietary. So I took it all offline. There actually was another demo of this early on, but the more I use this thing, the more powerful it became, the more I learned how to use it. And then I made some changes to add the quick auger clean out and all that, and then the new heat exchanger, which is more efficient than the original version. All right, so how I'm going to light it tonight is I'm going to use a torch, and I'm going to light it right through the air nozzle. So you don't have to fiddle with that. And then like when you have the automation package, that's where that probe's going to go. Like we talked about earlier, you might want to save that probe, because that's the exact probe you're going to need for the controller. And that's exactly how we're going to set it up. It'll be removable. Yeah, when you do the auger clean out, you'll want to remove that probe so you don't damage it. And you also got to be careful that you don't hit the coil inside there, because you can damage it that way with an auger. But it shouldn't be long enough to reach it, so should be fine. But just keep that in mind. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this going. And we're gonna turn the water on to start. So 3 o'clock position. You can see it glowing in there. You usually hear it crackling too. And then if you see any smoke, not quite. Can you see that? No. You can probably hear it though. You really hear that water. Once that water starts boiling, it really starts adding the hydrogen. Alright, so this is my old. I'm just gonna do one of these. I'm gonna go about every 2 inches in between splits, and I'll show you how to break this off. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go right down the middle of these splits. Just crack them open. Right. Now I'm gonna go every 1 inch. Alright, so this is what the fuel is gonna look like. It's wet. The wetter it is, the thinner you're gonna want to split it. But also, the thinner it is, the more controlled that is. If you have it too much, then you'll make a lot of smoke and a lot. You don't want to make smoke, and take the time to split up the way I'm splitting. Right, so. Alright, so as you can hear, the generator's loaded down, so it's battery charging. Just put a fresh load in here. That's more than what I needed. So ideally, see, I got those red drums over there. I gotta cut the top off of each of them. And then those are gonna be added, and then they're gonna surround this whole thing, and this will create a shield. Plus it'll help insulate it. Alright, so I turn the water up. You keep it at starting let it get good and warmed up before you start turning up the water. So it's about 5 o'clock right now. So now I'm going to turn it up to 6 o'clock. I think 7 o'clock is the threshold, but for this video I'm going to do just running at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. So that valve is beyond halfway. That's off. Alright, so we're in here in the RV, so you can see the charge inverter here, and then the 2 batteries, and then I got the inverter for the RV is here. It's just 2500 watt unit, and then the shop inverter is there, and then that line, that line goes out to power the shop, and then hopefully we can get a look at this, because I know there's gonna be some idiot, but you can see it's kind of blurry, but oh, it's 52. Usually it charges 50. Oh, it's because the batteries are in the dirt. But it's 40 amps. I wish this thing would There we go. Alright guys, so 2 hours and 12 minutes. Looks like it's done. I checked in the hopper and it's pretty much done. So we got 2 hours on that run. Well, that one works too well. Well, hold on. We're going to shut the water off, right? That's all I did. Alright, so you can hear it. It's still blowing in there, right? So you don't have a big flame coming out. So that's going to shut this off. No water or no air can get in there. And it's just going to shut it down. That's it. That's all you got to do is shut this off. Alright, so I wanted to show you what it looks like when it's truly in gasification mode. You got flames rolling over the top. So this is in the finishing stage. So once that fuel's burnt through, that batch will be done. And you'll see in the bottom, well, when this is done, it'll be ejecting a flame out the bottom. So this is gonna finish it off. So just wanted to show you that real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll check the yield. All right, guys. So it's the next day. Let's see what we got. I did add quite a bit more fuel. Looks like it cooked it down. It's actually still hot. So what we're gonna do is dump that, quench it. So here's the next batch. Alright guys, so I'm going to conclude the video and we'll see you in the next one.